Okay, thank you very much for waiting for my presentation. Basically, I'm here to give a talk on the impact of plant structural and architectural traits on tomato fruit quality, a systematic review. And I should take this opportunity to say that for our results now are still in the pipeline, and I'm giving a preliminary outlook about the work. So basically, when we come to the results section, I'll talk about the framework of our results, and we are excited in the future to present that somewhere again. So basically, when we talk about the global importance of tomatoes, we know that nutritional-wise, medicinal-wise, and extensive production, tomato is very important. So when we take the nutritional value as provided by USDA per 100 grams, we find out that we have all these values and quantities as expected relative to our daily requirements. Then when we look at the health implications, we can look at the prevention of diseases, preventing of degenerative diseases such as cancer, cardiovascular diseases, all because of the antioxidants and other phytochemicals that we can find in tomatoes. The production has become something extensive and is a very important fruit in the world. And now up to 2023, we are about 200 million tons of production of tomatoes. But in spite of this production, the quality of tomato has not been fully addressed. And for breeding aspects, our breeders are on it. And basically, we want to look at how the structure of the plant impacts these qualities of the fruit. So basically, when we look at the fruit, fruit quality is a complex trait. And basically, it is controlled by processes at the plant and the fruit level. This is the reason why we have to look at the structure and the architecture of the plant and how it can improve the fruit quality of tomatoes. So when we look at the fruit quality, we can talk about attributes like the external attributes, that is physical, size, weight, color, firmness, and texture. Then we can also look at the internal attributes where we have the chemical, that is the soluble solids such as malic. And then we can look at the acidity, nutrients, and the sensory attributes. So basically, we see that genetically, environmentally, and culturally, that is the practices that we impound on the crops also affect the quality of the tomato. And when we look at the quality, we should also think about these cultural practices also augmenting the structure and the architecture over time. So we will say, what is structure and architecture? Basically, when you look in the literature, you find out that sometimes it's used interchangeably, but there's a thin line between structure and architecture, and basically they are interconnected or related because it's both for resource utilization. So what is a plant structure? And basically it's the physical components and organization of the plants. So structure normally will ask us, tell about what has the plant, as in its genetical and components, and how are they organized. And architecture is a three-dimensional or the spatial arrangement of the plant components over time. So what is there and how is it arranged in space? And in that orientation or in that 3D display, how does it affect resource utilization, capture and utilization? So when we talk about architecture, basically we'll look at the leaf shape, the internode length, the leaf angle. Then we can look at the leaflet curve. So we know that tomatoes is a compound leaf plant, and it's a model plant which is very special. And so basically, when we look at the plant architecture, we see that it is for light interception and also the way it is displayed and arranged. An open plant a plant structure, as in terms of the architecture, will have a different microclimate from the other that is closed. And for instance, when we talk about the plant structure, there are some studies that have shown that, for instance, if you graft tomatoes with different rootstocks, then you would have some effect on the fruit quality. So we find out that there is a reduced ratio of carbon and nitrogen in the fruits, and also fruit firmness is affected, and the period consistency of these tomato varieties that use the grafted tomatoes, grafted rootstocks from other plants that were very positive for quality tomatoes were impacted. Also, there was a significantly difference in the soluble solid content, and also juice electrical conductivity, ash content, and the weight of the fruits. So this tells us how structure in terms of the roots also would affect the quality, the chemical quality, and the sensory qualities of the tomatoes. So when we look at structure, as in the category of the leaves, the more the area of the leaves, that is per unit area, it increases fruit quality by providing more photosynthetic area. And if it's oriented in such a way that light capture favors the plant, then it improves fruit quality by increasing sugar production. Also, when we take the stems, if we look at the strength of the stem, strong stems support fruit weight, and therefore it alleviates fruit damage. Branching pattern. So if we have a well-branched tomato variety, it improves air circulation, it reduces the risk of diseases, and it promotes healthy fruit, which is also extending the shelf life. So basically, we can also look at the plant habits here in that category, determinate versus indeterminate. We see that indeterminate plants produce continuously, and they tend to have higher quality fruits because they tend not to be so bushy, and the canopy is opened in relative to the bushy types that are not trained, or genetically they have that inherent higher quality fruit. Also, plant height. Plants yield more fruit, but they may require structural support to prevent damage. So if it has an optimized plant height, then there will be less damage, which will affect the shelf prolong the shelf life of the tomato fruit. So with this background, our objective was to use a systematic review to examine the role of structural and architectural traits in enhancing tomato fruit quality. So basically, we want to identify the plant structural and architectural traits that influence physical, chemical, and sensory attributes of tomato fruit quality. Then we want to determine the traits with the most significant impact of individual physical, chemical, and sensory quality attributes of the fruit. So basically, we go on with the methods of using the preferred reporting items for systematic review and meta-analysis. And we are following the protocol, and our inclusion criteria is a peer review articles and institutional reports and other traceable gray literature such as theses and others. So we would want to look at 10 to 15 years, but as we have been screening the literature, we have seen that probably we have to delve to older years to get a very good representative of the whole aspect, since some of the traits lack a lot of information. Basically, we are looking at the databases such as Corpus Web of Science, Agricola, Semantic Scholars, and the other contemporaries. So analysis, now we have seen that descriptive, we have some patterns, and quantitatively, we will have to have more number of papers that have our inclusion criteria. So this is one of the reasons why we are not presenting, I am not presenting any results here today. So basically our inclusion, we are looking at all the tomato species that have been reported, and the various varieties, and we are not restricting ourselves to a particular language. We are using tools to translate. Then our target is the plant structural as defined as stem, root, leaves. And then we look at the architectural traits as I mentioned on the other slides. And we are looking at specific outcomes as the physical, chemical, and sensory, because it's very broad and we'll have to really go through all these. So the study types, they are only studies that are focusing on these traits, and it can be observational studies, experimental research, or relevant systematic reviews. Also, when we come to our results, of which we are on now, we have identified a couple of papers, but now we are doing the screening, whereby we really want to get a lot of the structural traits are available, but the architectural traits, we have difficulties in them. So we are still on this process, and then we hope that we have scheduled to end the end of April, and then we'll see how far we have accumulated the knowledge concerning this topic. So the characteristics that we will present in the future will be the study, the year, the design, the sample size, the structure that they spoke, we have accumulated. Then the plant synthesis of findings, we'll look at physical, quality, chemical, and sensory. Then what we can tell you for now is that our preliminary findings suggest that there's optimized plant height. When there is an optimized plant height, leaf area, and branching, these go in a long way to enhance photosynthesis and improve the fruit size, the texture, and the composition. The composition is what we are coming out with, the specific chemical compositions and others. Some really talk about antioxidant and other bioactive compounds which were not part of our scope. So we are looking at a further future inclusion. Then it also says that shorter internals boost fruiting efficiency because for shorter internals, the transfer of the assimilates and other necessary resources such as water, it helps in the building up of the fruits. And strong roots, as we all know, aid nutrient uptake and flavor because the plant has access to all the needed nutrients and can also give it out to the various sections of the plant. So in conclusion, we are enthused about refining and sharing our concrete findings, and we don't want to pronounce anything here since science should be transparent and conclusive. So we hope that in the future we can share what we have found about this topic. Thank you very much for listening to me.